Good morning, Warriors.
Good morning, Mr. Walker.
I love how that front row of kindergarten just snapped up right away. Way to go, guys. Please join me in the pledge to the Bible. I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word. I will make it a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will hide its words in my heart that I might not sin against God. Join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've been working through sound off, and yesterday we learned one about greater love. So the answer is that he laid down his life for his friends. Let's try that. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. We talked about love is always sacrificial. It always gives of itself. We've also been working through some big terms. These are important ones, though. We've talked about the word atonement, that Christ, to atone for something, means that there is a debt that has to be paid. So Christ satisfies God's justice by his suffering and death and becomes a substitute for us. And then we talked yesterday about justification, how we're made right before God. The law has been broken, so the judge has to declare us righteous. And the way he does that is Christ gives us his righteousness. So the answer is God forgives all my sins and accepts me as righteous through Christ. So repeat after me. God forgives all my sins and accepts me as righteous through Christ. So we'll put it all together. How does God justify you? God forgives all my sins and accepts me as righteous through Christ. So God forgives all my sins and accepts me as righteous through Christ. So that is how we are justified, made right. We've talked about our relationship with God was broken through sin, and this is how we're made right before God through Christ. His righteousness becomes our righteousness, and then God sees that and declares us to be right before him. We'll be talking then about what all this means to us because the next question is, what must you do to be saved? So there's a part that involves you. We are talking about the virtue of courage, so let's welcome Mrs. Atkinson.
Good morning, Warriors. So, how many of you have ever faced a giant before? Probably not too many people in here, right? We don't have giants walking around. But back in the Bible, there was a giant. His name was Goliath, and a small boy named David defeated him, and I'm going to tell you his story today. So Samuel went to Bethlehem and was looking at Jesse's sons. They were looking for a new king. And he went to Jesse and said, "Let me see your sons." And so all the brothers came out, and there were quite a few of them. And he started looking at them, and he saw the oldest, Eliab, and he said, "Oh, he's strong and he's big, and I think he can be our next leader." And the Lord told Samuel, he said, "Don't consider his face or his height, for I have not chosen him. Man judges by the outward looks, but God sees the heart." So after 7 of Jesse's sons had passed by, Samuel said, "The Lord has chosen none of these." And he asked, "Are these all you have?" And he said, "Well, there's one more. His name is David, and he's out in the field caring for the sheep." And so Samuel said, "Send for him." So they brought in David, and he was very young, but he was already a person of great courage because he killed a lion and a bear with his own hands trying to protect the sheep. So he's pretty strong. If you can defeat a lion and a bear, hey, why not a giant, right? So the Lord told Samuel, "Arise and anoint him. He is the one I've chosen to be king." So from that day forward, the Holy Spirit was on David to enable him to do the work that he called to do. So it wasn't long after that he had the challenge with the giant. And while the Philistines were gathering against the Israelites, there was this giant named Goliath, and he was 9 feet tall. Now, I'm like 5 feet, so if I'm 5'4"-ish, double my height if I was standing on top. That's how big he was, and David was a young boy. And so this giant kept coming, and he was terrorizing the Israelites. And so David stepped up, and he said, I can do it. Do you think you could do that? Well, I don't know. I mean, this is a giant, right? So he was not afraid because he knew the Lord was with him. They told him, Saul heard of this. He says, you can't fight this giant. You're too young. This man is a trained fighter ever since he was young. And David said, the same Lord who helped me kill a lion and a bear will give me victory over the giant. And as the story goes, with one stone, he slung his slingshot and threw it, and he defeated the giant. And he was able to save the Israelite people. So God gave David this great strength inside of him. And God can do the same thing for you. All you have to do is lean on him. Lean on God for that strength and for that courage. And your giants may not be 9-foot men, but your giants may be something like practicing for your Latin test that was really hard. Or it could be the spelling bee, getting up and having to remember how to spell words. It could be trying out for a play, something that takes a lot of courage to do. Those can be your giants, but you can defeat those giants just by depending on God. So today I want you to think about being a giant slayer and be strong and courageous, just like David.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely?
Well, it's going to be an exciting day in first grade. We've got some baby chicks hatching today, so that's pretty exciting. We've been talking about, today we talked about giants. So the bigger they are, let's slay some giants today. The Lord be with you.